The sprawling metropolis of Galaxar Prime glittered under the light of 1,000 alien stars, its towers stretching toward the heavens. Diplomat Eleanor Hayes walked through the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, her posture straight, her face calm, despite the undercurrent of tension. Representing Earth in these halls had always been an uphill battle, but today the stakes were higher than ever. The council chamber loomed ahead, a cavernous hall where representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered. The air buzzed with hushed conversations, their tones ranging from hisses and clicks to deep, guttural rumbles. Hayes stepped forward, her tailored navy suit marking her as a stark contrast to the flowing robes, exosuits and bioluminescent skin patterns of her alien counterparts. She took her place at Earth's modest podium, her eyes scanning the room. At the center, the towering figure of Vorth Zillan, the Zarathan representative, radiated hostility. His chitinous frame gleamed under the chamber's artificial sunlight, his multifaceted eyes glinting with malice. Representative Hayes, began Arkan Valor, the insectoid speaker of the council, his voice a chorus of buzzing tones. The floor is yours to address the grievances levied against Earth. Hayes nodded and stepped forward. Her voice was steady, clear, and unwavering. Honored council members, I stand before you not as an aggressor, but as a representative of a species seeking only its rightful place in this galaxy. Humanity has contributed to the collective through trade, technological advancement, and defense against external threats. We ask not for special treatment but for fairness and mutual respect. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Fairness? Vortha's voice cut through the air like a blade. He rose to his full height, towering over Hayes. Your kind speaks of fairness while your fleets expand unchecked, your colonies springing up on worlds that rightfully belong to others. Humanity has proven itself to be a plague, a species of conquerors cloaked in the guise of diplomacy. Gasps and murmurs echoed through the room. Hayes remained composed. With respect, Representative Zillan, Earth has adhered to every colonization treaty and trade agreement this council has ratified. If you have evidence to the contrary, present it. Otherwise, your accusations are baseless. The tension in the chamber grew palpable. Vortha's mandibles clicked in frustration, but he did not retort. Instead, he sat, his multifaceted gaze never leaving Hayes. The debate continued for hours, with Hayes passionately defending humanity's actions. She countered every accusation with facts, turning even the most skeptical council members to her side. By the session's end, a faint glimmer of hope flickered in her heart. Perhaps Earth's position could be salvaged. That evening, Hayes attended the mandatory diplomatic banquet, a lavish affair hosted in the council's central plaza. The air was thick with the scent of alien spices, and the hum of conversation filled the space. She moved through the crowd with practiced grace, shaking hands, or the closest alien equivalent, and making small talk. It was then that she noticed a shift. The air grew colder, conversations hushed. A commotion stirred at the banquet's edge. Hayes turned, her heart sinking as she saw armed council guards approaching. Representative Eleanor Hayes, the lead guard announced, his voice amplified for all to hear. By the authority of the Galactic Council, you are under arrest for conspiracy to assassinate a council member. A wave of disbelief swept through the crowd. Hayes froze, her mind racing. This is absurd, she said, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her chest. On what grounds? The guard stepped aside, revealing Vorth Zillan. The evidence is irrefutable, he sneered. A weapon was found in your quarters, coded to your DNA. Gasps erupted. Hayes felt the weight of every gaze turn on her. This is a fabrication, she said firmly. A clumsy one at that. I demand a thorough investigation. There will be no need, Vorth declared. The council has already deliberated. Your guilt is clear. Before she could respond, the guard seized her arms. She struggled briefly, but the cold, metallic restraints locked around her wrists. The trial was a farce. In a matter of hours, the council stripped Hayes of her diplomatic immunity and sentenced her to death. Despite her protests, no evidence was presented and no defense was allowed. The execution was carried out the next morning in the council's central square, a grim spectacle broadcast across the galaxy. Hayes stood on the platform, her chin held high, her expression defiant. To humanity, she said, her voice resonating through the square. Do not let this act break you. Rise. The lever was pulled. As her lifeless body swayed in the artificial breeze, the Galactic Council declared it a necessary act to preserve peace. But on Earth, the news of Hayes' execution ignited a fury that would burn brighter than 1,000 stars. And in that moment, the galaxy had unwittingly lit the first spark of an unending war. Chapter 2, The Spark of War. Earth fell silent as the broadcast ended. Eleanor Hayes' execution played on every screen, her final words echoing in the hearts of billions. The image of her swaying body, a symbol of defiance and betrayal, etched itself into humanity's collective memory. But that silence soon gave way to anger. In the heart of New Geneva, the United Earth Federation (UEF) convened an emergency session. Representatives from Earth's nations, colonies, and orbital outposts gathered in the vast circular chamber. President Michael Tannerson, his face drawn and weary, stood at the podium. "The Galactic Council has shown us where we stand," he began, his voice firm despite the heavy burden it carried. "They see humanity as expendable, as a threat to their fragile order. They executed our diplomat, our voice of reason, without trial, without justice." He paused, scanning the room. "This is not a declaration of war on us. This is a war against our right to exist." The chamber erupted in debate. Some called for immediate retaliation. Others warned of the overwhelming might of the Galactic Collective. Amid the clamor, Admiral Celine Corr, commander of Earth's fleet, rose. Her silver hair and sharp eyes commanded attention. "Diplomacy is no longer an option," she said bluntly. "The Council has unified against us under the Zarathan banner. If we don't act now, they will wipe us out, colony by colony, world by world. We must show them that humanity will not bow." Her words silenced the room. Within hours, Earth's fleets mobilized. The INS Resolute, flagship of the UEF Navy, led the charge under Corps' command. Their target was Draken 4, a Zarathan colony strategically positioned near human space. The operation was designed as a message: humanity would strike back, and it would do so decisively. The fleet emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the Draken system, their ships sleek and bristling with weaponry. Zarathan orbital defenses scrambled to respond, but the human assault was swift and surgical. Earth's forces disabled the colony's shield generators and communications, rendering the Zarathans vulnerable. Admiral Corr watched the battle unfold from her command station. "Engage the fleet," she ordered. The Resolute's railguns fired, their kinetic rounds tearing through enemy frigates. Squadrons of human fighters darted between Zarathan vessels, deploying experimental EMP weapons that left alien ships dead in space. Within hours, the battle was over. Draken IV's defenses lay in ruins, its planetary governor captured. Corr stood before the prisoners, her voice cold. "Return to your masters and tell them what you saw here. Humanity will not be broken." On Galaxar Prime, news of the attack sent shockwaves through the Council. Vorth Zillan seethed, calling for immediate retaliation. But the Council was divided. Some species, like the pacifist Therans, urged caution. "This war is Vorth's creation," whispered Dr. Vexra Lal, a Theran scientist. "The humans retaliate only because we force their hand." The Zarathans dismissed such voices. A coalition fleet was formed, and the Council issued an ultimatum: Earth must surrender or face annihilation. Back on Earth, President Tannerson addressed the people. His voice carried across cities, colonies, and starships. "They executed Eleanor Hayes to break us," he said, his tone resolute. "But instead they've united us. Humanity will not kneel. We will fight, not just for survival but for justice, for freedom, for the right to chart our own destiny." Across the galaxy, humanity's war cry echoed: "We will not bow." And so, the war began. The war spread like wildfire, consuming system after system in its wake. Earth's defiance had transformed a single execution into a galactic conflict, pitting humanity against the vast forces of the United Galactic Collective (UGC). Though Earth was outnumbered, humanity's ingenuity and unrelenting determination kept them in the fight. 1. A war of attrition. The battlefield spanned entire star systems. Fleets clashed in the void, their weapons lighting up the darkness like dying stars. On the planet Cygnus, 3 human ground forces, clad in adaptive exosuits, faced off against the Zarathan vanguard. Commander Maya Trask, a decorated soldier, barked orders as her troops dug into the rocky terrain. "Hold the line," she shouted over the roar of plasma fire. "Reinforcements are 2 hours out." The Zarathans advanced in waves, their insectoid warriors swarming over the battlefield. Despite being outnumbered, Trask's troops used hit-and-run tactics, exploiting their superior mobility and intimate knowledge of the terrain. By the time reinforcements arrived, the enemy had been routed, but at a steep cost. 2. Human innovation. Back on Earth, the Horus Initiative, a covert military research program, worked tirelessly to give humanity an edge. In an underground lab beneath the ruins of Rio de Janeiro, Dr. Elena Rajiv unveiled the latest breakthrough: adaptive AI-controlled drones. These drones, she explained to the gathered UEF brass, can learn and adapt in real time. They'll anticipate enemy tactics and respond faster than any pilot. Admiral Celine Kaur nodded, her face grim. Good. Deploy them immediately. We need every advantage we can get. The drones proved devastating in the field, crippling the UGC's larger, slower fleets. Humanity's resourcefulness became legendary, earning them grudging respect and fear across the galaxy. 3. The human cost. For every victory, humanity paid a heavy price. The Zarathans retaliated with orbital bombardments on Europa Station, wiping out thousands of civilians. The once thriving colony of Helios V was reduced to ash, its population annihilated in a single night. In a darkened war room on Earth, President Michael Tannerson addressed his advisors. His face was pale, his voice strained. How long can we keep this up? He asked, staring at the casualty reports. We're winning battles, but we're losing people. Too many people. Kaur, standing at his side, replied, as long as it takes, Mr. President. If we stop now, they'll finish what they started. For divisions among the Council. The UGC was fracturing under the weight of the conflict. While the Zarathans pushed for total annihilation of humanity, other species began to question the wisdom of the war. In secret, Dr. Vexra Lal, a Theran scientist, reached out to a human contact, offering intelligence on the UGC's next offensive. This war, she said in her transmission, is not about justice. It's about power. The Zarathans will destroy us all if we let them. Lal's information helped humanity win a critical battle in the Altair system, further dividing the Council. 5. A Pyrrhic victory. In one of the war's largest engagements, humanity's forces destroyed a massive Zarathan dreadnought fleet near the Tartarus Nebula. The battle was won, but at an unimaginable cost. The INS Titan, Earth's largest battleship, detonated its reactor to ensure victory, sacrificing itself and its 15,000 crew members. The victory was bittersweet. Humanity had survived another day, but the war showed no signs of ending. Both sides were bloodied, exhausted, yet unwilling to yield. The war had become more than a fight for survival. For humanity, it was now a matter of pride, defiance, and an unwillingness to be broken. The stars burned brighter with every battle, but peace seemed like a distant dream. Humanity had proven it could endure anything. The question was, for how long? The war dragged on for decades, consuming generations and reshaping the galaxy. Humanity, once a fledgling interstellar species, had become a hardened, militarized force. Earth was no longer the thriving blue gem it once was. Its cities were scarred, its surface pockmarked by orbital strikes. Yet the spirit of its people remained unbroken, their resolve forged in the fires of war. 1. Stalemate in the stars. By now, neither side could claim decisive victory. The Galactic Collective had underestimated humanity's adaptability, but Earth lacked the resources to eliminate its enemies outright. The conflict devolved into a brutal stalemate, a cycle of raids, counterattacks, and fleeting gains. Admiral Celine Kaur, now graying and battle-worn, led the UEF's Second Fleet in yet another skirmish near the Vale Cluster, a contested zone riddled with asteroid fields. Deploy the cloaked frigates, she ordered, her voice steady. We'll bait their forward fleet into the debris field and flank them. As the battle unfolded, Kaur's strategy worked flawlessly. Zarathan cruisers were torn apart by asteroid collisions and precision strikes from Earth's cloaked ships. Yet even in victory the toll was evident. Half of Kaur's escort fleet was lost. They're endless, her XO muttered. No matter how many we take down, more fill the void. Kaur nodded grimly. And so are we. 2. A society transformed. On Earth, society had adapted to the perpetual war. Children grew up in bomb shelters, learning history from teachers who spoke of Eleanor Hayes as a martyr and symbol of defiance. Factories churned out weapons and starships around the clock, while propaganda glorified the endless struggle. The first generation born during the war, known as the Children of the Forge, were raised with a singular purpose: to fight and survive. Among them was Lieutenant Arya Tannerson, granddaughter of President Tannerson. On the front lines of Thetid 9, she led her squad in storming a Zarathan outpost. We fight for everyone who came before us, she told her troops as they advanced through enemy fire. And for everyone who comes after. Arya's squad secured the outpost, but the victory was hollow. 2/3 of her soldiers didn't make it back. 3 voices for peace. Amid the carnage, faint whispers of peace began to emerge. Dr. Vexra Lau, the Theran scientist who had defected to humanity's side, continued her secret work with human allies. Alongside Dr. Elena Rajiv, she proposed a plan to unite dissidents from both sides into a neutral accord, a coalition advocating for an end to the war. Their efforts culminated in a clandestine meeting on Ixion 4, a neutral moon far from the battlefront. The talks were promising, but before any agreement could be reached, Zarathan assassins struck. Lau was killed and the fragile alliance dissolved into chaos. For a legacy of defiance. Decades later, the war showed no sign of ending. Humanity had grown more advanced and resilient, its fleets rivaling those of the collective. On Theran Prime, a historian named Kale Rin reflected on the conflict's origins. They hanged a diplomat to silence a voice, Rin wrote in his records. But they only ensured humanity would roar louder. They turned a single death into a symbol, and that symbol into a war no one could stop. The story of the war became the story of humanity itself. A people who refused to surrender, who thrived under the weight of impossible odds. Though peace seemed unreachable, one truth remained: humanity had earned its place in the stars, not through diplomacy, but through unyielding strength and the enduring legacy of Eleanor Hayes.